Halo semuanya, selamat datang kembali di channel ini. Berjumpa lagi dengan saya Vicky Himpong. Bagaimana kabar kalian semua? Saya berharap teman-teman semuanya selalu dalam keadaan yang sehat. Sama-sama kita tahu bahwa Pak Jokowi di berbagai kesempatan, beliau selalu mengatakan bahwa Indonesia di tahun yang sudah ditentukan itu akan menjadi negara besar, akan menjadi negara maju. Ya, kita yang selama puluhan tahun hanya menjadi negara berkembang, tapi seorang Jokowi yang begitu optimis, begitu ambisi yang benar-benar sangat luar biasa, ingin membuat Indonesia bisa menjadi negara yang sangat besar, negara maju. Bahkan dikatakan Indonesia akan menjadi negara keempat terbesar di dunia. Itu sudah diprediksikan dan sering kali dinyatakan atau disampaikan oleh Pak Jokowi di berbagai kesempatan. Dan tentunya itu bukan hanya sekedar omongan belaka yang tidak mempunyai fakta, tapi itu benar-benar sudah dikaji dengan jelas. Itu mempunyai data-data dan fakta. Dan kali ini kita akan melihat sebuah video yang dimana ini akan menegaskan tentang apa yang disampaikan oleh Pak Jokowi. Bukan hanya sekedar berkata-kata saja, bukan hanya sekedar surga telinga, hanya menyenangkan telinga masyarakat Indonesia saja. Tapi yang disampaikan oleh Pak Jokowi adalah suatu hal yang benar-benar fakta, yang bahkan itu sudah di-riset oleh, bukan kita yang melakukan riset, tapi sudah dilakukan riset oleh media luar negeri, oleh para pengamat-pengamat perekonomian sebuah negara dari luar negeri, dan mereka akan sampaikan kenapa Indonesia itu menjadi salah satu negara superpower di Asia. Ini dilakukan riset. Jadi video ini akan menegaskan kepada kita semua bahwa apa yang disampaikan oleh Pak Jokowi adalah hal yang benar-benar real, fakta, berdasarkan data, bahkan sudah di riset. Ya. Jadi ini akan lebih menegaskan lagi bahwa perjuangan Jokowi itu bukan hanya sekedar di mulut saja, tapi benar-benar sebuah fakta. Kita akan sama-sama saksikan bagaimana itu akan dibahas. Link original video saya sertakan di deskripsi. Jangan lupa tekan tombol subscribe, nyalakan notifikasi supaya kalian semua tidak ketinggalan berita seperti ini. Kita akan segera play videonya. Let's do this. Let's go.
Oceans, Indonesia.
When
thinking of Asian superpowers, people automatically think of Japan, Korea, China. But shocking to most, one of the highest-ranked economies in Asia is actually Indonesia. Located between the continents of...
Mungkin ketika mereka bertanya, ya, saya ulangi sekali lagi, meskipun teman-teman semua membaca, karena ini membuat saya bangga. Mungkin orang berpikir, perekonomian yang besar di Asia, Jepang, Korea, ya. Tetapi sayangnya, hal yang paling mengejutkan, kalian pikir ini luar biasa, ternyata Indonesia loh.
China. But shocking to most, one of the highest-ranked economies in Asia is actually Indonesia. Located between the continents of Greater Asia and Australia, as well as between the Indian and Pacific Oceans, Indonesia has been dubbed the Emerald of the Equator.
Wow,
the beauty and power of this overlooked country now boasts to be a shining example of what a true hidden gem can achieve. In this video, we'll go over Indonesia, its quickly growing economy, and its huge potential to become one of the world's strongest and most surprising forces in the world.
Wow!
It's easy to understand why Indonesia is often overlooked regarding ranking economies. It's a Southeast Asian country that has been colonized by Westerners, the Portuguese, the Dutch, the Germans, and the British. Colonized countries tend to have weaker economies due to their need to recover from their losses during colonization. Naturally, Indonesia had to recuperate its losses from all the years under foreign rule. From its year of independence in 1945 until before the introduction of the new order in the 1960s, Indonesia's economy was deplorable, to say the least. The colonization of foreign forces heavily impaired Indonesia's production and export of rubber and oil. Following this, Indonesia's attempt to quickly repair economic conditions was macroeconomic solutions, while ignoring microeconomic problems, resulting in inflation, poverty, and hunger. Fortunately, the years after the 1960s were the turning point. The New Order administration, led by then-President Suharto, was put into effect and stabilized the currency, decreased inflation, and attracted foreign aid and investment. They solely focused on revitalizing the economy while enforcing strict laws which improved the country's overall organization. The reforms in the country's policies in the 1980s resulted in an even better rise in the economy. In fact, from 1989 to 1997, Indonesia's economy was growing at an amazing rate of 7% during this time frame.
Amazing
While
guys
the
ya.
1997 Asian financial crisis didn't spare Indonesia, the country was quick to its feet and continued its economic growth. While Indonesia's GDP has seen an upward trajectory since the 1980s, its growth in the 21st century is what's most impressive. Sitting at a GDP of $986.8 billion in 2000, Indonesia is projected to have a GDP of $5,800.6 billion by 2027. Much of Indonesia's 21st century success in economics can be attributed to their 20-year development plan spanning from 2004 to 2024. This
2024.
development plan, called the RPJMN, which translates to National Medium-Term Development Plan in English, is segmented to one 20-year long-term development plan, as well as 4 5-year medium-term development plans, each with different development priorities. For example, in terms of environment, the 2015 to 2019 RPJMN focused on developing renewable and sustainable resources, while the current 2020 to 2024 RPJMN
riset yang mereka lakukan
focuses
ya.
on addressing deforestation,
Deforestasi.
forest degradation, and other environmental concerns. Each medium-term RPJMN builds upon the previous one in order to have a methodological process of advancement in their economy. Unlike other countries where there is a clear sector that does the heavy lifting for the country's GDP, like manufacturing for China or petrol for Middle Eastern countries, Indonesia's rise in their economy is thanks to multiple sectors of their economy performing well. Manufacturing is the biggest contributor to Indonesia's economy, which is responsible for around 20% of the country's GDP. Textiles and garments, food and beverages, electronics, automotive, and chemicals are the most mass-manufactured industries in Indonesia. In fact, Indonesia is currently the 10th largest manufacturing nation in the world. In addition, manufacturing employs 1/5 of Indonesia's working age, employing about 25 million workers. With the current rate of manufacturing and production resulting in an average of 4% annual growth, coupled with the government's plan to further enhance current rates, Indonesia has a high chance of entering the world's top 10 economies through manufacturing alone. Despite the success of their manufacturing sector, agriculture still makes up a huge chunk of the country's economy, making up around 14.43% of the country's economy. Indonesia produces a whole bevy of products and commodities, the most prominent being rice, cassava, tapioca,
Beras, singkong,
peanuts,
tapioka,
natural
kacang.
rubber, cocoa, coffee, palm oil, copra, poultry, beef,
Kopra.
pork, and eggs. Palm oil especially is very vital to Indonesia's agriculture and economy, as Indonesia is the biggest producer of palm oil in the world, producing half of the world's palm oil supply. Other sectors that contribute to Indonesia's economic growth include the oil and mining industry. Indonesia is the biggest producer of nickel and the second biggest producer of cobalt in 2022. While a lot of Indonesia's economic success is attributed to laws, politics, as well as the previous and current administration's governance,
Pemerintahan saat
geographic,
ini ya.
political, and geopolitical features also lend themselves to Indonesia's success.
Geopolitik ya.
Geographically, Indonesia is in a very good location. As mentioned earlier, Indonesia sits right between Greater Asia and Australia, as well as the Indian and Pacific Oceans, making Indonesia a sensible trade route for surrounding countries. As the largest archipelagic country in the world, it only makes sense that Indonesia capitalizes on its own geostrategic advantages by establishing itself as the world's maritime axis.
Wow.
Despite
I
being
am
a great
so
contender
proud
for being a
of
maritime
Indonesian.
center, Indonesia isn't making strides to make itself a maritime country due to current trading routes. Also, another reason why Indonesia has quietly risen as a top Asian superpower is the fact that Indonesia is the de facto leader of ASEAN,
Pemimpin Asia.
which is the Association of Southeast
God.
Asian Nations. Indonesia is a founding member of ASEAN, which was established in 1967. This entails a political and economic union of all 10 participating countries: Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam, which promises to accelerate economic growth through the help of one another, while also maintaining peace and stability between each nation. Indonesia is also a member of APEC, or the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, an intergovernmental forum that consists of Asian
Dijelaskan
countries,
dengan
as
begitu
well as
teliti
other
ya.
countries surrounding the Pacific Ocean, such as Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Peru, and the United States, among many other countries. APEC promotes the free trade of products between APEC members, which allows trading of agricultural products and raw materials. APEC is also considered one of the highest-level multilateral blocs and the oldest forums in the Asia-Pacific region. Because of Indonesia's rising potential to become a superpower, as well as its strategic geographic location, established superpowers like China and the United States are both seeking to strengthen their continued relationship with Indonesia. While Indonesia remains neutral about the China-United States feud, Lowy Institute's 2021 poll reveals that Indonesians find the United States more important than China for Indonesia's economy, with 18% voting for the United States compared to 14% voting for China. Additionally, 4 in 10 Indonesians prefer investments from the United States, compared to 3 in 10 from China. As it stands, Indonesia remains neutral and has no bias to wear its sides, though the interest of the 2 most powerful nations in the world shows how important Indonesia is, causing a cascading effect of foreign investors to be more attracted to Indonesia. Indonesia had a roaring 2022, with an economic boom of 5.3%,
Wow,
the highest since
ledakan ekonomi.
2013, and it looks like the country's economic streak has no end in sight. Indonesia remains the world's top producer of nickel and palm oil, and the second best to many other products. While the Indonesian government states that 2023 might not be as strong of an increase like 2022, the government is still positive that a 5% increase is possible for 2023.
Yes,
Indonesia
dan terbukti ya,
is still on track
terbukti.
to
Sudah
fulfilling its
5,2% di
20-year RPGMN
2023.
plan in hopes of fully realizing the goal of the plan, with outlooks looking positive given the current state of the.
Ini benar-benar menegaskan ya. Sudah jelas, dijelaskan secara rinci. Dijelaskan dengan secara data dan riset. Bahkan ditarik dari sejarah. Bagaimana pertumbuhan ekonomi yang dulunya benar-benar mengalami keterpurukan, tapi hari ini Indonesia mengalami yang namanya ledakan ekonomi. Wow, aku merinding dan aku sangat bangga. Apa yang disampaikan tadi itu membuat saya secara pribadi sebagai seorang warga negara Indonesia itu merasa begitu bangga tinggal di negeri ini. Ya, jadi apa yang disampaikan oleh Pak Jokowi bukan hanya sekedar hal-hal omong kosong atau dongeng saja yang beliau sampaikan. Tapi ini sudah benar-benar terbukti. Ini benar-benar jelas ya. Teman-teman bisa melihat apa yang disampaikan tadi berdasarkan riset dan fakta. Bagaimana Indonesia itu benar-benar akan menjadi negara superpower. Dulu mungkin kita berpikir, jika kita mendapatkan pertanyaan, negara superpower apa? Pasti kita akan menjawab Amerika. Tapi kalian bisa lihat, yang memberikan julukan negara superpower kepada kita bukan kita sendiri, tapi orang yang ada di luar negeri sana. Mereka mengatakan Indonesia akan menjadi negara superpower. Superpower, bukan Amerika lagi, tapi Indonesia akan menjadi negara superpower. Kalian pasti bangga. Dan semoga video ini mengedukasi kepada setiap mereka yang mungkin sudah termakan hoax atau provokasi dari mereka yang membenci Pak Jokowi, mengatakan bahwa program-program Pak Jokowi itu hanya sia-sia saja, hanya membuang-buang anggaran. Mereka mengatakan hilirisasi itu tidak ada gunanya, hanya merugikan negara. Mereka mencoba memutarbalikkan fakta dengan menimbulkan sebuah opini-opini untuk menyesatkan pemikiran masyarakat tentang Jokowi. Tapi semoga dengan video kali ini kalian bisa berubah mindset kalian bahwa apa yang disampaikan oleh Pak Jokowi itu real. Bahkan yang menegaskan bukan kita sendiri, yang melakukan riset bukan kita sendiri, tapi media-media asing yang terus berdatangan. Kita akan terus bahas bagaimana riset-riset media asing melakukan risetnya dan pembahasan terhadap Indonesia. Kita akan terus agar supaya ini lebih menegaskan bahwa Pak Jokowi adalah presiden mungkin yang terbaik di Indonesia. Tulis pendapat kalian di kolom komentar. Saya Vicky Himpung pamit. See you and God bless. Bye guys.